This is a big experiment. Hi, I'm Avis, and I have the Pieces Here podcast, and we've restarted Peacewarts. I'm doing a video of this, which goes up on YouTube and Rumble and Substack. So if you're watching that, the sun, I left my desk, but this hour of the morning, the sun comes streaming in. And so I have, it's right on the top of my head and my forehead, but I really love it, the way that it comes through the trees. And my idea, what the experiment is that, Peacewarts has these different peace topics in its format and their scripts, and there's homework. So what I did for the first 3 departments, and there's 14 classes each, so we went through 42 classes already. I would talk a little bit about the homework. I'd come on the video. Teo's here with me. And something that I really feel that I'd like to do, and I thought I'd do it on video, is to connect with what's happening in the world. Around the holidays this year, I read Kirio Campos reading holiday literature, and at the end, I read something that I called the Peace Lands, where I read off current conflicts and the largest conflicts we've ever had and the number of deaths, and I just said the phrase, peace is here. And this morning I was listening to, this is going to be going all over the place. Prepare yourself. You can just close it down now, or if you stick around, we're just going to be talking whatever. That's the experiment part of it. So my plan is to do the homework with you, and then do this little search for what I'm thinking of, what I want to search up each week. And I thought Peacewarts now is 3 times a week. We just had the first one on Friday. That was the class 1 of Resonant Charms. And in Resonant Charms, we are learning about how our physical body and how we interact, affects the space. And this first class was the tuning fork test, and basically talking about entering the room and just doing a reading. We're always thinking about what we're going to say and what we're going to do. Even right now, I listened to a podcast with Alan Watts this morning talking about the different levels of consciousness. And the gist is, we are part of the rocks floating around in space. We are all connected. So we are connected to people who are in war, people that we feel are warmongering. We are all connected. And so my thought is, if we look at these things of what are happening, I want to do it because I don't want to have some esoteric podcast about peace concepts without anchoring into what's really happening in the world, just to say a prayer for it, just to be present with it. And it is this paradox of knowing that the universe is evolving, and there's so much going on now, but there's always been so much going on. Just hit my mic. And there's the fear and the doom and the gloom, and some of those things that people, dystopian ideas and futures, we don't know what's going to happen, right? But what if some of these changes, these immense changes that we're having right now, are leading us to greater peace and going to create something that hasn't even been conceived of yet? So we're going to start with what the homework was, and this is not going to be great podcast material because I'm going to be actually looking it up, but I think I will pop it onto the podcast as well. And so I am going to go to the homework, which I read before this, but I don't recall. And of course now don't even have the document up. Here it is. Okay, so Number one of the homework for class 1 of Resonant Charms is look up the term emotional contagion and find one study or an example of an example of how a person's state affects others. I'm going to move my mic so that'll be a little sound on the recording for sure. And let's just take a look. So I'm just gonna use Google for that. I'm just gonna type emotional contagion studies. I have a fan on. That's making for good podcast audio. I have my refrigerator on. The behind the scenes of this recording is I usually pull my refrigerator away from the wall. It's in a little hole it's built in. Pull it out, unplug it so that there's no background noise. I also put on a long sleeve shirt, which is, I'm sure I've said this on the podcast before. I remember my mom and my aunt talking about the time on Gunsmoke when Kitty started wearing sleeves. So I had on a tank top and I didn't want to subject you to my 63-year-old skin, although I may someday, so I'm not making any promises. So studies show, emotional contagion is the unconscious process of catching and mimicking the moods, behaviors, and emotions of others. Studies show this occurs rapidly through nonverbal cues like facial expressions, body language, and tone of voice, causing our brains and physiological states to synchronize with the people around us. And that's what this episode is. It has three things to do when you walk into the room. So I hope you listen to it and you can do this homework on your own. I'm not going to do all the homework, just this number one. Key studies and concepts that define the field include, probably won't read all of these. It said define one study. So the first one that comes up is Primitive Emotional Contagion, 1992. The foundational framework by Elaine Hatfield identified a two-step process Sorry, I was just looking up to see if I was even recording. The foundational framework by Elaine Hatfield identified a two-step process. People automatically mimic others' nonverbal expressions, and this physical feedback triggers the corresponding emotion in the observer's own brain. That came from ScienceDirect.com. The mirror neuron system. Neuroscientific research suggests that groups of neurons in the brain fire both when an individual performs an action and when they observe someone else doing it, which physically replicates the emotional state internally. Wow. Got to keep going. Massive scale social media studies in 2014. A controversial experiment by Facebook and Cornell researchers, Big Brother, altered the emotional content in users' news feeds. The study provided experimental evidence that emotional contagion scales to vast online networks, proving that in-person interaction and nonverbal cues are not strictly required to infect others with positive or negative moods. Okay, so that wasn't a sidebar we were going to, but personally, I don't look at social media or my email until I sit down to work. And then in the last 2 months, I've taken the apps off of my phone. It's when you have I'm an author and I have marketing things to do, it makes it much more challenging. And for example, when you do an Instagram post, you can't put music on it on the desktop. So, but those things make for a much more peaceful morning. And if we all know that we're being affected by all of these things that we're being shown, take a break. That's a little sidebar. So that was number one of the homework, and I hope you'll follow the class. The classes started on episode 200, and you can go back and catch up. They're very short, and then we're in Resonant Charms 101 in Peacewarts, the School of Peace and Inquiry. So the next thing I wanted to do, which is another big part of the experiment, is I wanted to go into AI and ask it, what are the current biggest conflicts right now? And to just be grounded in that. And the quote for the class, class 1, was a Rumi quote. And I read when I sit down and meditate. I haven't been doing yoga and meditation every day since I've started taking care of my mom. I've been alternating with the gym, and I don't like it as much, but I have to fit it all in with my new caregiving. But when I do sit and do yoga, the first thing I do is I read and journal very quickly. I'm not doing a lot of writing. I'm just, I keep track of what I read. And I landed on today a dog-eared Rumi poem, which maybe we'll read at the end. So I've used Perplexity at the suggestion of another AI when I was working on my last book, Bulletproof, and wanted to make sure that the appendix of Bulletproof, which has the weapons used in the mass shootings, was accurate, since my books are fiction, but obviously if I'm putting an appendix of something in. And so it recommended Perplexity. So I'm going to go to Perplexity, and I don't think I have a paid account any longer. I think I downgraded it after my book was done. So it's Perplexity.ai, and it wants to know what I want to know. And so I'm going to tell it I only want it to track my necessary cookies. So what I'm going to not rub my tummy and pat my head at the same time. I'm going to type it, and then I'll tell you what I typed. Okay, so the question that I'm asking, what are the major wars in the world today? After each location, tell me what year it started and how many deaths have occurred today and in 2026. So before I read these, I'm just going to, again, state the intention of, I've never said this on the podcast, and feeling a little emotional. I've had a recurring dream throughout my life, and it is that I've forgotten something. This is when I'm dreaming, and that whatever I forgot is causing the demise of the entire planet. And at the forefront of that disaster are my own children. And it's this feeling of whatever I forgot. To mothers everywhere, anyone had anything similar? In working on peace and thinking, who am I to decide to believe that peace is possible? I know many other people do as well. But in deciding to work on something, it's this feeling of, oh gosh, it makes a lot of sense that we go to disarmament. Or what would happen if someone did that and then something bad happened? But I've heard this said, we don't have to have all the answers of how something's going to be accomplished to make a plan for it and to have a philosophy of it. So I know that the universe is expanding and evolving, and all of these things are happening. But our intention of peace and our belief in peace, the fact that we can even see peace, I am holding close that means peace is possible. So it popped up something surprising that I don't really like. It popped up a row of images that almost looks like you're searching on the internet, but it must be a new feature. So it completed 3 steps, must have been the parts of my inquiry. Here are some of the major active wars today with the year they started and the best publicly available death estimates I found for 2026. Because many war zones do not publish reliable real-time counts, I'm giving current estimates rather than exact deaths today figures. And I'm just going to personally say peace is here after I read these out. Sudan started in 2023, deaths in 2026. Not precisely known. CFR says estimates range from 61,000 to hundreds of thousands total, and reported 2026 updates include at least 1,000 civilian drone-related deaths in the first 5 months of 2026. I didn't ask for deaths today. It must have thought I wanted deaths today. Ooh, that makes you want to say a prayer there, doesn't it? Thinking of a death today, but in this column it says no reliable single day, no reliable data for that. So the Sudan peace is here. Ukraine 2022 is when that conflict started. A June-July 2026 CSIS base report says Russia alone has had about 450,000 battlefield deaths since 2022, with total war casualties above 2 million. 2026 monthly Russian casualty rates were over 30,000. That's from the New York Times. The first one didn't have a link. Peace is here. Gaza, Israel, Hamas war. The conflict started in 2023. Gaza's health authorities reported 72,562 deaths since the war began, and 2026 updates showed continuing fatalities, including 786 deaths since the October 11, 2025 ceasefire period in one report. Peace is here. Yemen, the conflict began in 2014. Moving my mic back closer. CFR's tracker says the war began in 2014, and its background notes about 377,000 deaths by early 2022. I did not find a credible 2026 cumulative death update in the sources retrieved. That was Teo exhaling. Peace is here. Democratic Republic of the Congo. The conflict started 2025, escalation of a long-running conflict. CFR says the current escalation intensified in early 2025, but the source retrieved did not provide a 2026 death toll. So we're going to read on what it returned, just out of curiosity. I didn't give it a total number, so it's interesting to see why it would have stopped at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it didn't provide a total to date, so I didn't type that well. But Wikipedia has a source for that. That's what I used for with valid sources, and it's updated regularly. If you ask all-time deaths for conflicts in the world, and that's what I use for the holiday peace lands. So what the numbers mean, the hardest part of your question is how many deaths have occurred today? I have to go back and read my question. Did I ask that? Because most conflict trackers update by week or month, not by day, and several war zones have severe reporting gaps. For that reason, the most defensible answer is a list of current death estimates or reported totals for 2026. Okay, so it's just letting us know why it couldn't perform that. So the second part that I wanted to do, so I don't know what these will be called. Peace dispatch sounds kind of clinical, but I just want to come together. I'm not going to promise an interval, but I think Saturdays will work. It'll be after the 3 classes we've had for the week, but we'll see what happens. And then just going on to see what's happening. So we asked about conflicts, and now I want to ask what type of peace victories or examples, small or large, have happened in the last, we'll say, maybe we'll ask for 2026, and then we'll see what we ask for going forward. Ask a follow-up. Typing. Okay, hopefully this won't make it take a long time. What are the biggest peace victories or events, small or large, January 1st, 2026 to present? List at least 10 up to 100. And again, I'm using Perplexity.ai. Below is a curated list of major peace victories or peace-related events from January 1st, 2026 to today. I included only items I could verify from current reporting or institutional sources, and I prioritized events that meaningfully reduced violence, advanced negotiations, or created new peace mechanisms. So I think why the other AI suggested Perplexity, and I'd love, you can contact me on my website or through social media if this isn't a good source, if you know another good one for these weekly peace dispatches, definitely let me know. And the other idea I thought was, and I may still do this before we close, when I went to Rumble to start some videos, and what I liked when I heard about Rumble is they've developed their own completely independent system, and they're very free speech. So there's a lot of, many may call what I'm doing crazy. Peace, global peace, crazy. But there's a lot of, people showing their guns on there and all kinds of things. But I asked one of my AI tools who would be a good match for me on Rumble. So it provided some things. And Glenn Greenwald is something that I tune into. Glenn Lowry, Elizabeth, I can't think of her name. You can find it in my email. That's a Substack. Besides Rumble, those are also Substacks to follow. So I thought another thing we could do that would kind of be a current events is like to tune into some of those. So let's see what they said about peace events. Just take a deep breath. Feeling so grateful that we can read these examples of peace events. Major peace victories. U.S.-backed Gaza Peace Framework and creation of the Board of Peace, January 2026. Reuters reported Trump launched the Board of Peace on January 21, 2026, and the White House said the new committee for Gaza was a major implementation step for the peace plan. Number 2, Gaza ceasefire implementation steps, January 2026. The White House said that the NCAG formation on January 22nd was a vital step forward on implementing phase 2 of the Gaza plan. Can you hear my teeth biting my tongue? I'm biting my tongue right now. I really don't want to misspeak on things I'm not fully knowledgeable of. But I think we know there's been enough said about our involvement and connection with Israel and what's happened in Gaza. So I will leave it at that. I will just Perplexity here is reporting on what's identified as peace, and we are just going to read through them. Onward. Number 3, World Peace Flag Ceremony in Rome, January 1, 2026. A peace-focused event in Rome marked a global moment of prayer and unity on New Year's Day. That's beautiful. Number 4, UN Peacebuilding and Political Activity Roundup, January 17th to the 23rd, 2026. DPPA's weekly bulletin highlighted peace process work in Colombia and other political and peace-building developments. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Number 5, Thailand released captured Cambodian soldiers after a renewed ceasefire. January 2026, a January 1 news roundup reported the release as part of a ceasefire-related development. Number 6, Global Peace Summit 2026 in Paris, January 28 to the 31st, 2026. The summit convened young leaders, diplomats, and peace workers at UNESCO for conflict resolution discussions. Number 7, Inaugural Board of Peace meeting, February 2026. The White House later listed an inaugural Board of Peace meeting as an official event, indicating the new mechanism continued beyond its reach. Number 8, Unarmed Civilian Defense online course, beginning February 2, 2026. This is not a ceasefire, but it is a peace-building capacity event aimed at nonviolent protection. Interesting. And that source was peace-ed-campaign. Interesting. Yeah, a lot of the work of universities is all of this security work. I mean, the peace, when you study peace, it's not everywhere in every class, but when I look it up to see what people are studying regarding peace, it's a lot of security work. And this is interesting that was an unarmed civilian defense course. Number 9, 2026 Ohio Peace and Conflict Studies Network Conference, February 13th, 2026. Another peace-building event that supported conflict studies and mediation capacity. Number 10, Austrian Forum for Peace 2026, June 29 through July 2nd, 2026. This major peace conference gathered researchers and practitioners around the art of peace, and that's in quotation marks. So I would, when I close this down, I'm interested in looking that up. It just happened. It's a major peace conference, and it's about the art of peace. And I don't know if art means, literal art, but I believe the people that are making art, I write books for peace, and there's all kinds of, I feel like we've had enough dystopian art. We can picture the bad. And I think there's a big movement of making art for peace, making art for for protopian vision. And let's see how much we have here. Not too much more. We're going to go on, and you can just log off if it's too much. So the next section, it titled Major Diplomatic Moves. Number 11, U.S.-Iran Preliminary Peace Agreement announced in June 2026. Reuters reported a preliminary agreement to end the war with signing planned in Switzerland. 12, U.S.-Iran ceasefire agreement signing June 17th to the 18th, 2026. Reuters described the signing of a ceasefire agreement and the associated market and diplomatic reaction. Okay, more tongue biting. So we can celebrate that agreement was signed, certainly. Number 13, Lebanon-Israel-U.S. mediated peace framework, June 29, 2026. Reuters reported a framework that aimed to end the state of war and continue toward a broader peace agreement. I want to say thank you to all the people that work for peace and are part of these mediations and negotiations. Many we don't hear about, the behind-the-scenes people. 14, new Lebanon-Israel talks in Washington, June 23, 2026. Reuters reported that direct talks resumed under the shadow of the U.S.-Iran deal. Number 15, Qatar diplomacy and continued ceasefire talks in late June 2026. Reuters said the U.S. and Iran remained far apart, but were still working through terms of the ceasefire and wider peace deal. Other notable peace signals: DPPA's January peace process work on January 2026. The UN's Political Affairs Office highlighted a refocused UN verification mandate and peace process activity, and there's 20 total, so we're almost there. 17, the World Peace Flag Ceremonies Interfaith and Youth Participation, January 2026. The event included participants from multiple countries and was framed as a bridge-building effort. 18, regional ceasefire-related progress in Southeast Asia, January 2026. The Cambodia-Thailand prisoner release was a small but real de-escalation signal. 19, peace education and civil society convenings throughout 2026. Alliance for Peace Building and Peace Education campaign listings show continuing peace sector organizing across the year. And that link says Alliance for Peace Building. Number 20. I'm going to skip number 20. It's more Trump propaganda perpetrated by Perplexity. Not intentionally, but, let's read it, shall we? You'll know you're getting everything from me. You can search up the same question on Perplexity yourself. President Trump's public peace messaging on January 1, 2026. He posted a New Year's resolution centered on peace on earth, which framed the administration's public messaging for the year. We all want peace. We all want peace. And it was a platform that Trump ran on, and it's a shame about Iran, but we will just say that. But spreading a peace message is certainly a good thing. And okay, that was what I had in mind. And I did also have in mind the small things we might think about that have happened for peace. So those are the major things we just learned about. So maybe next time we can also think about those are pretty general and come from the major news. So maybe there's a way to dig into, let's see, we'll try one more thing since this is our big experiment, a big messy experiment. I do love Gemini. I think if I had to just take one AI with me on my desert island with my desert island discs, I believe it would be Gemini. So let's ask. Okay, so this is what I asked. I would do fiction work with my AI tools, but I also have at the end of a year-long journaling with AI where I started out telling it 3 things I know and then asked it to not mirror me, and it can't do that. It has to mirror you back, but it tries, but it always ends up just riffing off of something that you shared. So I started out giving it 3 things that I know, kind of feeling like I want to be putting things into the AI brain, and asking it 3 things, just quirky things it might know. And it was fun, but it always told me things related to the 3 things that I had said. And then about halfway through the year, and I'm almost done with the year, I started it on July 7th last year, so there's only a few more days left. And happy birthday, America, by the way. It's the 250th birthday of America today on July 4th. Now I do a little journal entry and then I ask it 3 questions. So I do use it in a non-fiction way as well. But let's see what Gemini said. So can you find some real life stories of examples of peace within the last 5 years? Don't make them up. Something inspiring. That's what I asked Gemini, who I call G. Even in turbulent times, remarkable concrete peace initiatives have taken root over the last 5 years. These stories are completely real and highlight how shared human needs, the food, survival, and safety, can bridge deep divides. Here are 3 inspiring examples of peace in action between 2021 and 2026. So I think what I'll do is we'll close with the Rumi poem. I'm just going to read one of these. I don't know if it's going to be inspiring or not, but since we asked for a larger time period and we're going to be doing these, unless I get hit by a bus, every week with the homework, we'll save these other ones for another time because we've gone on 36 minutes already. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce this. The MVUVI, Mavuvi, IDs, Co-Managing Coastal Waters in Kenya, 2024 to 2025. In coastal Kenya, a nighttime fishing ban intended to curb security threats heavily crippled the livelihoods of local fishermen. The tension between local fishing communities and law enforcement was hitting a boiling point, pitting survival against state security. Instead of pushing back with violence or stricter crackdowns, a collaborative peace-building initiative brought both sides to the table. They co-created the digital MVUVI ID system. This allowed law enforcement to verify the identities of fishers in real time, safely restoring nighttime fishing access. The takeaway: by shifting the dynamic from us versus them to us versus the problem, they protected both local economic survival and regional stability. That's very nice. Yeah, I think about, oh, isn't this, here I am in Northern California, but if I was in some country and my village was going to be, the water wasn't going to be there because someone was trying to take it, or something for life and death, some food, and deciding to go to battle for something to protect your community. It's real, and those are the things that are happening, and especially with climate. So here's an example. So we will save the other ones for another day. I'll make sure I save those. And let's just see if we can quickly go to the quote that was in the homework or in the episode. Let's see what Rumi had to say. The 13th century Persian poet and scholar of the heart, Rumi, once observed, "There is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen." Before I close with this poem, I just want to say thank you for this, if you did join me for this experiment. And we're all learning together. That's the whole point. We just continue learning, and a lot of the stories we're told about war, they're not true. There's so much peace and so much beauty. And thank you. So this is a poem that I had dog-eared. It's so beautiful. And the mystics, poets that talk about love, it sounds like romantic love. And it's just a love for the divine. It's very beautiful. Some kiss we want. There is some kiss we want with our whole lives, the touch of spirit on the body. Seawater begs the pearl to break its shell, and the lily, how passionately it needs some wild darling. At night, I open the window and ask the moon to come and press its face against mine. Breathe into me. Close the language door and open the love window. The moon won't use the door, only the window. Okay, peace and love.